Hey, what's up guys? Jackson here with Toasty DIY, and today we're going to be talking about the Diana Instant from Lomography. Let's go ahead and get into it. So if you guys don't know, I've been pretty into instant photography lately, along with some digital as well, and I'm going to talk mainly in this video about the Diana Instant from Lomography, but also I figure we should compare to some of the other offerings because I have each size of Instax Fuji Film here. So we have the minis, we have the Instant Square, and then we also have the Instant Wide or Instax Wide. So here's an idea on what a pack of Fujifilm Instax looks like. It's not a roll like you're used to seeing for 35mm or some of the other older formats. Instant film actually comes in a pretty clean, nice cartridge. You basically just tear it open, and then it's going to just look like a little black box that's all plastic. It's disposable once you're done with it. But basically you get 10 shots in each one of these packs, and that goes for each one of these sizes. Now, if you want to see a video on these other two cameras, make sure you check out Toasty DIY. This is the Fujifilm Instant Mini Evo, which is a hybrid camera. It's digital, but also does instant printing. It has smartphone capabilities. It's a really cool $200 camera. This right here is the Lomography Instant Wide Glass, which is about a $200 camera as well. And this one does the very wide format instant prints. And then this right here is the Lomography Diana Instant. And this camera does also come in a 35mm variant as well, and possibly some other ones. But what makes this camera really cool is, first of all, its looks. It's a very unique looking camera that you can get in a couple different colors. Sometimes I think they have like a cream color. This one's kind of like a black with a kind of like a teal or a blue. And one thing that makes it interesting is it does have this removable viewfinder, which is kind of interesting. It goes on the top of the camera, and I will say the camera, it's all plastic, so you do kind of want to remove this if you're going to be traveling with it. If you're going short distances, it's fine, but like I would be really afraid of that breaking off because this is a cold shoe mount. So this should fit pretty standard accessories, but obviously if you put something else here, you're going to just have to kind of point and shoot, which in all honesty, instant cameras are kind of designed for in a way. It is nice knowing what you're shooting, but realistically, you don't have to know. Once you kind of get used to it, you can definitely do just point and shooting where you hold it down here or even hold it at hip level, and you can get a pretty good idea on what your picture is going to look like. Now, one of the things that drew me to this camera was the fact that it is very manual. It's very analog. There's really not much to it, but I will say it's hard to get a good photo with until you've used it quite a bit. So you have some pretty cool modes on here. On the back side, you really don't have anything. On the side, you literally have an on-off, and then you have an MX, which MX is going to be multiple exposure, and that's just really if you want to get experimental. Like if you want to take a photo and then combine it with another photo, that's a multiple exposure. I don't really recommend doing that like your very first few shots. I would just get used to getting good photos and then experiment with multiple exposure. On the top of the lens here, we have your basic mode, which is going to be in, and then you have a bulb mode, which is going to activate the flash. And it's interesting, it does actually have a removable lens. It's almost like a modern camera where you basically get it lined up, and then when you want to turn it, you can take it off. Basically, it's a plastic lens. You can actually get this camera with the glass lens as well, which will give you slightly sharper images. But that's kind of one of the points of the Diana camera. I mean, if you read the history on Lomography of like the original Diana, like back in the 50s, 60s, these cameras were kind of known for having shots that didn't have an outcome you'd expect. So even back in the day, they often had a plastic lens, which causes certain types of distortion. You can see a pretty cool photo I took here. It's probably hard to tell because it was pretty dark, but it's funny because this photo was taken in full broad daylight, which will kind of bring me to one of the downsides of this camera. One of the reasons why I don't carry it with me super often is it's just a little bit harder to shoot with, my opinion. You really do need to use the bulb, which goes here. This is like a hot mount for the bulb, and you can even use different styles, but it comes with a bulb flash. You definitely need it anytime you're shooting in any type of low light situation. When I first got this camera, I probably wasted a whole entire cartridge trying to shoot inside, and I was getting almost nothing. I was getting just the tiniest glimpses of light, and then once I shot outside with it one day, I realized, wow, you really got to have some good lighting for this camera. So you can also see the last part of this, well, sorry, there's two more adjustments. So on the bottom here, you can see we have different aperture modes. So I'm gonna turn this around so I can actually read it. We have f11, which is going to be the brightest, meaning if you're in a low light situation, you're definitely gonna want f11. We also have an f19 and an f32, which is for like those sunny days. And then we even have an f150, which is just like the tiniest pinhole at that point. So f150 is definitely going to be for like the tripod type modes. You're gonna need an extreme amount of light, you know, flash, everything to really really utilize the f150, because even something like f22, which is a mode on this camera, you can literally set it to f22. In broad daylight, it makes everything pretty dark. So it's an interesting camera. I kind of wish that it had some lower aperture modes, like an f8 or like 7 or even lower would be awesome. But I'm sure there's limitations on why they can't do that. And then that brings me to the last point of adjustment, which is actually inside of here. I'm trying to take the lens off. Inside of here, which is a little odd, you can actually change the focal distance. So you can go from, it's typical lomography, 4 meters and beyond. So they call it infinite mode. It shows an infinite symbol. So basically, if I was gonna take a picture of this camera right now, I'm probably, 4 meters. I'm probably within a few feet. So I'd probably do like the 2 to 4 meter mode, which is the middle. And then the closest, which is 1 to 2 meter, that's gonna be like, I think around 2.5 to like maybe 5 feet. And then 4 to infinite is definitely gonna be a little bit further out. I think 4 meters would be closer to like 10 feet and beyond. So it's definitely like a particular camera is how I describe it. Something like the instant wide, I feel like the instant wide was almost easier to get used to than this camera. I will say one thing I love about this camera is the shutter sound. It sounds awesome. It sounds really good. So I'm gonna let you guys hear it one more time. So it's very manual. Like even though the camera is off, like with this camera, it's just a button. It's not super satisfying. The camera's off, so I can press it. It feels like a mechanical switch. It has a good feel, but there is something about having an actual like lever that is super satisfying to use. So that's definitely something I like about this camera. You also have this, it's called like a selfie mirror. It kind of looks like a part of the camera design, but it actually has a purpose. It's so that if you want to take a selfie, it is actually a very, very clear image. You guys have probably been able to see the camera the whole time I've been talking. The viewfinder is interesting. It's a circle. So it works really good, actually. I'm gonna try to see if I can get it to where you guys can see it, hopefully. It works really well. It looks really small when you're far away and kind of intimidating, but once you get it close, it is very clear, especially when you have good lighting. So, I mean, at this point, I think we're pretty much close to the point where we can probably try to take some photos. I have not used this camera a whole lot. I've gotten a few good photos like this, but I've also had a lot of bad photos. So I normally carry these two in my digital camera, and I feel like I haven't really given the Diana a whole lot of use. So I'd like to go ahead and go around the office. We got some pretty good lighting. I'll probably go outside as well. We'll take some shots. I might start outside because I think that's gonna be easiest where we have plenty of light. We're in the great outdoors. Right now I kind of have, the sun's actually out really well. You can see it probably on my face right now, but I'm parked in a spot where I'm in the shade. So this is gonna be interesting because I honestly don't know what aperture to shoot in. I think I'm gonna try first. Man, let's try f19, which is basically the second from the lowest aperture. So that's gonna be second from letting in the most light possible. See, I need to make sure too, I'm worried about the sun hitting the camera. So for this first shot, what I might try is, I'm gonna try getting a little bit of a closer one just to see what that looks like to where I'm not in the sun. So right now, sun's behind me. I'm just gonna try to get a picture of like the wheel and we'll see how that looks. So we're gonna try f19, meaning we're trying to get a little bit of extra help with light. We're just gonna turn it to on. I'm gonna bump up to the 2 to 4 focal range so that we're a little bit closer. And I'm just gonna try to get a shot of kind of like the front clip of the car with like the rim in it. All right. So you guys could probably kind of see how that works. It just prints out the top here. By the way, the cartridge goes in here. You just push down on this little guy here and then it opens up. I'm not gonna do that because you will ruin about one shot, at least doing that as soon as you expose these cartridges to light. We're playing the patience game, but I don't know if you guys can see, I'm starting to see it develop. It's been about maybe 30 seconds. It is interesting. I think it could be because it's really cold out. It's probably about 30 degrees right now. It is developing a little slower than I'm used to. But it definitely looks like we're gonna have an image here. So let's give it about 5 more minutes and see how it turns out. So these results are pretty funny. The first photo I took, you know how I showed you guys the shutter sound? Wasn't really thinking about it, and I basically did a double exposure. So you can kind of see in the background, these are the windows here when I took that little shot inside. And then the car, obviously. So I basically did a double exposure accidentally. And funny enough, you can really see the car really well on this one. All right, so here was the third shot. This one turned out a lot better. And I did realize that on this one that I showed you guys, where it was really dark, I accidentally had it switched to f32, which I will say is something on this camera I've noticed. It's really easy to not have the right aperture selected. It's just a really sensitive dial. This is the lowest aperture possible, f11. So you can kind of see this one, I probably could have shot a maybe at the in-between, which would have been f19, and that's actually what this double exposure was shot at. And I know it's hard to tell, but the car, I think, looks the best lighting in this one. But I will say, very good quality, pretty good detail here. You definitely get that Diana look with the plastic lens. That's how you get kind of like the rounded edges like that. All right, so for this next shot, I'm gonna try to get one inside of the Toasty Bros neon sign. So this camera has auto aperture, ISO, white balance, so it probably looks pretty bright in here, but honestly, it's very moderate. Like this would be, I'd consider this like house lighting. And while I'm waiting for the other photo to develop, I figured I'm gonna try taking a selfie, which I've actually never done on any of the instant cameras. I'm not really a big selfie taker. Yeah, so after trying even more indoor shots with what I thought was really good lighting, even at f11, both of these, as you can see, did not turn out great. This one's sort of cool. I mean, it's honestly doesn't look amazing because the neon you can see, which I like, it looks kind of dope, but at the same time, it has like this almost eerie washed out effect due to lack of lighting, I guess. Camera definitely without the bulb, I will say. And I've seen some really good examples using the bulb with the flash. I've seen some people get some really nice looking shots inside. I don't have it with me. I'm not really much of an indoor photography person anyways. I prefer shooting outside. So for me, you know, taking the car photos, it looks really good, but I'm probably not gonna try much more indoor shooting without a flash ever on this camera. And just like that, I'm back outside after having a couple of failed indoor shots. Like I said, without having the flash on me, it's just not even worth trying to shoot this camera inside, which is not to be said about the other Lomography cameras. The Instant Wide does a pretty good job indoors, actually. Obviously the Fuji Film does amazing inside, as it has a lot more auto settings. But yeah, I just wish this camera, I wish it was capable of a lower aperture. I really wish it was able to do like an f5 even. I mean, just something lower than f11, but that's all good. Well, guys, I failed at taking that outdoor photo. Having the sun in there, really in hindsight, I just shouldn't have done that. If I had taken it in the spot that I was saying where the sun wasn't there, these probably would have turned out fine. But at f11, it let way too much light in and just overexposed the hell out of the photo. You can't even tell which one was the double exposure and everything. So kind of failed at that. I think maybe if I had done the like f34 or like f150, one of those modes maybe would have worked. But I used f11 and took a photo from behind where the sun wasn't, and that turned out kind of cool. I had a cool little lens flare there. In hindsight, it's a little bright, so maybe the in-between, which I always forget the aperture modes on here. So if I had done f19 instead of f11, this probably would have looked like perfect. I think the Audi would have been it would have been fairly dark, but then Jonah's FX in the background would have actually had really good color to it. So this is still a little bit high exposed, but like I said, not a super easy camera to shoot with. And the moral of the story is if you're going to shoot outside, it works really good without a flash. If you're going to shoot anything inside, you really do need the flash. So guys, I think that pretty much is kind of going to wrap up this video. In all honesty, this is a camera that I would say for someone that's just getting into instant film, I think this is one of the harder ones you can get. I personally wouldn't buy this for your first one. I would start off with one of, like, especially if you want to do Instax or Polaroid, start off with one of their basic cameras, especially if you can get one of the ones that is just point and shoot, where there's not really a whole lot of settings you need to change. And then once you want to get more intermediate, something like one of these Lomographies would be really cool. I think that the Instant Wide is a little bit easier to shoot with because honestly, it has less settings. You can change the distance and you can do plus or minus exposure, but you don't actually set the aperture yourself, which is pretty cool. This one's just auto aperture and everything. This one's really cool though, because it's just all manual and that's what I really wanted, but I gotta admit, it feels really good when you get a great photo, which is awesome. Like, it feels better than any other camera when you get a good photo on this Instant one, but for all of the bad photos you take, it kind of sucks. And then the other moral of the story, if you do buy this camera, is just be prepared. If you're going to take any indoor photos, use the flash. If you're going to do anything outside, you're probably good. You can probably get some pretty good photos outside. Like, I've gotten a couple of really good ones, I got to say. So we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure to check out Toasty Bros and Toasty Clips, and stay tuned for more camera content like this. See you guys later.